Everyone, you're with Lucy from Artshed Angel, and today I'm going to be showing you the new alcohol ink Stays in Place ink pads with their re-inkers. It's a large range of colours that are coming out. This is the first release, and these are the metallics, and they're very, very lovely to use. So I'm going to go through how to use them and what you can do with them in this video. So please join me. So let's have a look at the colours we've got in this new range of Stays in Place ink pads. So we've got gunmetal grey, which is the one I'm going to show you how to use. I haven't opened it yet, so I'm very excited to use it. We also have matte black, which is available in a large ink pad like this. And also in this small ink pad, which is already inked up. Now the other colours we have is bright gold, rose gold, which is a great one to use, antique gold, jet black. Now these all have a pearlized shimmer in it, and this jet black has that pearlized look to it too. You can see when I put it in at an angle. There's sterling silver, which is very, very pretty, bronze, copper, and Arctic White. Now I've stamped the Arctic White over the top of the black Yupo. So this one here is black Yupo, and these are all obviously white Yupo. Now you can see through by this that it does actually have a really nice detail. Now I particularly stamped a detailed stamp so I could see the detail and how it did stamp, and it did stamp very, very well. So how do they come? They come in a pack like this, and I'm going to show you how to use this one. I'm just going to open it up, and the first thing you'll find when you open it up is you have your ink pad, and you may be shocked to see that it has no ink on it yet. Now there's a reason for that. It's because we ink up the pad itself. So we're going to ink up this ink pad, and we don't need to ink up the whole ink pad. We have a very easy little applicator to help us do that. And the important thing to do is make sure that you have shaken up your ink before. It is important, each one of them has a little ball in it, and you must hear this ball, and that ball also helps move the ink around. So I'm just going to give it a really quick shake up, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the ink on the pad. Now it's important that you shake up. If you start to put ink out and you don't see the pearlescent, make sure you stop immediately and shake it up a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just putting some drops of this black on here, and then I'm using my little tool to spread that. Okay, so don't press too hard. You don't want to push it right into the ink pad, but definitely spread it into your ink pad. And now your ink pad is ready to use. So what I'm going to do is just stamp an image for you. So some other little tips with this ink pad is this little applicator you've got. Make sure that you clean it off and put it away. You can actually put a little bit of tape. So I'm going to put a little bit of tape on the back of mine so that I have them there ready to use when I need to use it. And I don't have to worry, am I using the wrong applicator? So I've put a little bit of tape on the back of that. Some things I've learnt about these ink pads is to make sure that the ink pad is always covered after inking. So once you've put your ink onto your stamp, make sure you put that plastic cover on. Always stamp as soon as possible, as the ink can dry on your stamp before stamping. So, you know, have everything ready for you to stamp straight away. Always allow time to dry on non-porous surfaces such as Yupo paper, plastics or glass, etc. And it does dry quickly on paper, so that's really, really good. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this butterfly stamp. Now you will notice that your inks have a plastic cover. Now make sure that in between you always make sure that plastic cover's on, because that actually stops evaporation. We all understand that alcohol inks evaporate very quickly, so we don't want this to evaporate very quickly so that we've got it to use for quite some time. So then I'm going to ink up my stamp. Now this is the gunmetal grey, and I'm just inking my stamp up with the stamp. Now because I've only got it in one spot, I'm just making sure that I'm looking at my stamp and seeing that I have the colour everywhere I want. Putting this on straight away, and then I'm going to just stamp my butterfly. This is on the watercolor paper. And we have a beautiful image that has a little bit of a glitter effect to it. So I'm going to keep this and do some watercoloring to show you the next thing. Now I'm also going to now do a background with the Yupo paper so that I can show you how it stamps on the Yupo paper. So now I have some Yupo paper here. I've got some fluoro yellow, I've got some indigo, and I've got some graphite. And what I'm going to do is do a quick background using some alcohol blending solution, because I want it to be quite light, this background. A tiny bit of this yellow. Give it a bit of a shake. Always make sure you shake your alcohol inks a little bit before you use them. Putting a little bit of these colours on, and I'm actually going to use a little bit of the graphite because I want a bit of that glittery effect through it. And then I'm going to use my puffer and just give it a little bit of a move around. Now it is really quite critical that this is dry before I stamp on it. So I've just done a very, very simple background, but what I have is some beautiful glitter in there from the graphite, which is the graphite ink. Sorry, I picked up the wrong one. You can see that they're made to match. So how wonderful is that? These inks work beautiful on your normal papers and cardboard, and you can use it for colouring with felt pens, water-based felt pens, and also for watercolours. So they are really nice image and great colours. And I'm going to watercolour a background using the watercolours I have here, and just having a go to see how it works with this background. So does it bleed? So you can see here that it doesn't bleed at all. So it is a great ink to use for your watercolor projects, and you can use that with watercolor pencils or whatever you want, but it has a slight sheen to it, which you will see. So it's the perfect ink for many, many projects. You can see here, I can take a felt pen and pick up colour and go straight over the top, and there is no bleeding whatsoever. So this is the perfect ink if you want to do watercoloring in your art journals and things like that. It's as crisp as it can be, and the thing is, I love that it's a dark grey and not a black. So this is the particular one, the gunmetal grey, is going to be great for these sort of jobs. Okay, now I have just dried my background, so I have this, got a little bit of wet there, but that's fine. I'm not stamping over it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stamp over the top with my gunmetal grey. Now I don't have to put more ink on the ink pad, Now sometimes you will need to put more ink on your ink pad. That's why you are given a re-inker with this particular stamp pad. But I'm also going to show you a little trick as well. So I immediately put that plastic cover back on. And you can see there we have that beautiful gunmetal grey, and it's got this beautiful pearlized sheen to it. It is a perfect accompaniment to the alcohol inks from Couture Creations. There are lots of similar colours or colours that go together in the range. So I'm really loving the look of the graphite with the gunmetal grey papers, and I have done a little bit of a stamp over some Yupo paper here. I've done this straight over the fluoro inks, and what's really beautiful about this is it's got this little glisten. Now the fluoros in the alcohol inks from Couture Creations are very matte, so when you stamp this over the top you have this almost jacquard kind of effect, so it is really, really pretty. So I've also stamped some of the colours onto some watercolor paper, and this is the rose gold stamped over a jelly print. So you can stamp over the top of acrylic paints. This is great for your art journaling and things like that as well, and you'll be able to use it on many, many surfaces. Now, of course, if you are stamping on Yupo paper, it does take a little bit of time to dry, and you must make sure that your Yupo paper is also dry. So your alcohol ink background is dry before you stamp over the top of it. But you can see here it is completely smudge proof. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stamp a butterfly using the silver ink pad. So this is Sterling Silver, and I really like this. And I'm going to stamp this butterfly on the background a few times. And just inking it up. And I'm being very random here where I'm stamping them. And I'm not even looking for the perfect imprint, although they are stamping quite nicely. So this is just, sterling silver. I think the silver's beautiful. I think the silver will be a really lovely one to use on white backgrounds if you want that jacquard effect. So I'm just stamping that there now. Now making sure that I close my ink pad and also that I get this ink off the butterfly. So I'm just going to dry that quickly with, I use a hairdryer on Yupo paper, not a heat gun. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of my incandescent, and this is one of the glitter alcohol inks, and also some purple in the fluoro. And I'm going to put a little bit of alcohol ink in between the butterflies. Now they're going to dissolve a little bit of the butterfly, but what you're going to find is they will also hold in the ridge that is created by the inks. So you need to do this quite quickly, and I'm not worrying if I get a little bit of it going into the butterflies. What's actually happening here is that the butterfly wings are a little bit higher, so they're causing a bit of a ridge, but I want to now also get them to go into the butterflies a little bit. So I don't want to cover the wings of the butterflies completely, and you'll see that where you blow this, the image will melt. So that's normal because it's alcohol ink on alcohol ink. It's one of those things that will happen. But you can see, I can still see these butterflies coming through, which is what I'm trying to get the effect. Now what I'm liking about this is that we're getting this arty masking effect. So we're getting an effect like it's been masked, and that these butterflies, you can see bits of them through the alcohol ink, which is really, really pretty. Then I'm going to take the one that I really think is going to be one of my favorites, is the gunmetal grey again, and I'm going to ink up my stamp with the gunmetal grey, I'm going to stamp that over the top. So what I have here now is a background that has some really interesting stuff happening in it. And you could also then stamp this in gunmetal grey. I'm thinking I'm going to put a little bit more of the butterfly image on there and on there. So we have here a background that has the alcohol inks happening, and what's lovely is that you get the alcohol inks going around some parts of the wings and also underneath some of the other colour. Now this is all metallics and it's a really pretty soft effect. So it's definitely an ink that you can use on your watercolor paper, on your you can do all different effects, and it's a lot of fun. So here are some of the things I've created today using these inks, seeing that we can use it to do like resist techniques and just stamping it beautifully on our paper. I'm excited for the new colours that will be coming in the range. This is release 1, and you really need to give them a go. They come again with their re-inker and their little applicator, so you can re-ink this anytime you need to. There is a lot of ink in here. Just make sure that you shake the ink up. If you think there's enough ink on the pad, you will notice when you put just a few drops on this ink pad, it will reignite any of the ink that's in there. So one of the great things about this is that when you do this, it reignites the ink that's back in the ink pad. So it doesn't just dry out, you're able to reignite that ink. So Stays in Place ink pads by Couture Creations. Give them a go. You're with Lucy from Artshed Angel. Make sure you check out the description to see where these inks are available.